No matter where we played or where we went, we were the onion toppers and the muck farmers.
And the consensus around the barbershop was that we had a good year, but it was going to end.
You know, when we kept winning and nobody expected that that was going to happen.
You felt safe in Byron Center. People were friendly.
It would be very common to see a load of celery going through or a load of onions on the back of a wagon with tractors pulling it and the farmer out there waving to the people, and you didn't see much traffic.
You know, the roads were narrow, even going out of Byron Center for several miles till you got to another county.
Well, we always had the announcements in the morning, usually followed by a prayer. I don't know if they do that anymore nowadays, but it was a very solid start to a day.
And we didn't have hot lunch. We didn't have a cafeteria. We ate our lunch in our rooms.
And I remember sometimes at noon, we would walk into town and sometimes just get ice cream. And then walk back and go back to class. Sharon Vorenkamp and I, we used to get out of study hall and go make posters for games or pep assemblies and stuff. And Mr. Lugton, who was our principal at the time, called us in his office and asked us if we thought we ran the school. We said, no, it's just study hall. Are you all straight A students that you don't need to go to study hall? Yup.
We would go down to 28th Street on Comebacks was the name of the place. I don't know if you remember it. Comebacks, yeah.
There was the new McDonald's on 28th Street.
Yes.
Across from Rogers Plaza. And that was the first McDonald's in the area, and Rogers Plaza was the first plaza in the nation, I think, enclosed plaza in the nation.
You bought cheeseburgers at Comebacks, and you went to McDonald's and got their fries. And you spent $1.
Well, there was 3 places that we hit. There was Candy Ann's, then used to be on close to 32nd Street. Was that a Big Boys?
Yes, there was a Big Boy, yeah.
We would make the circuit from Candy Ann's to the Big Boys to
the McDonald's.
That was the routine.
You'd have to also drive around downtown, the circuit, we called it, Monroe Avenue and so forth, so we spent a little time doing that as well.
You had Moore's Drugs.
And we'd go down there quite often during the week. There was always people down there playing jukebox and maybe dancing, but it was nice you could run upstairs and get yourself a Coke and come back down. And
Dan Moore owned Moore's Drugs.
Dan Moore come in there. Hey, don't get sick. You guys play ball tonight.
They were all fun to go to.
Football, Bugs Hibbets was our quarterback. Phil Wiltzer to my left here played in. I played in. I sometimes played quarterback. But Bugs and I knew that when we threw the ball in Phil Wiltzer's direction, it could be 10 yards, 15 yards away. He would get it. We didn't have to be accurate. We would just throw it in that direction, and we know that Phil would grab it and score a touchdown. And I believe also Phil Wiltzer was all-state in football as well as all-conference.
Well, football was challenging. We only had 22, I think, come out for football. And we ended up the season with 18. Well, I think we were about 500 for the year, so it was a relatively good year. It's just we didn't have the numbers and everybody was getting hurt. We couldn't practice because we didn't have enough practice. So, but it was fun. We enjoyed it, worked hard at it.
Roger here was senior representative,
Dave was the king.
and Bonnie Lemire was the queen.
And Virginia sat next to me as my representative.
Yeah, Virginia Hurst Vandermoor. So we were on the court.
I do remember that it was an awful lot of fun doing the floats. That was fun. We didn't get a lot of sleep, but every night after school or whatever, we were over there working on the floats.
It was usually in the evening.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the floats. We went to someone's barn. I don't remember whose barn.
Houseman's.
Houseman's barn, okay. It was lots of fun.
It was.
I don't think there was really much at tryout. There wasn't that many people. I mean, you had what you had, you got what you got.
Sort of like if you could fog up a mirror, you were a player.
Well, in 8th grade, at least for us who are seniors, Coach Nichols organized us, and he also made contacts with people around the Grand Rapids area. And as I recall, he scheduled 8 games for us to play, like at some junior high schools, YMCA downtown. And I recollect that, well, not only was he doing the varsity coaching, but he was also doing the primary coaching for this 8th grade group that was an ad hoc group. And I believe we won all of those 8 games we played.
But he would say, you guys are going to play in Jennison Fieldhouse when you're seniors.
My dad was born and raised in Byron Center. My grandpa was a farmer, and so his older brothers thought, because he was the youngest of 7, thought that he should be home working on the farm. So he used to get up early to do his chores and then hide in the fields, and the bus driver would know where to stop so he could get on the bus and get to school. So my dad was a huge advocate of education. That was something that was important to him. So he graduated from Byron Center and went on to Western Michigan University to get his bachelor's and master's degrees. And then he did a stint in the Army for 4 years. And during that time, as he was getting to the end of it, because I had the opportunity to work in Byron for a while, I got his old records, and I found how he actually got the job when he was still in the service to be a teacher here in Byron. But he spent 30 years, his whole career, teaching, coaching, and as a middle school principal here in Byron Center. So really, other than college, everything was Byron Center.
He made you feel like you could play the game. He was always a positive influence on you as far as, you know, I think you're pretty good. Oh, if coach says I'm good, I guess I am.
But it often amazed me that, you know, he could put that kind of time into the varsity squad and then time with some 8th graders. I think he just lived, breathed, and ate basketball. He just loved basketball, he loved coaching it, and he loved developing young lives around that sport.
He says, we're a defensive team. We play defense. That was his big deal. If you can score 50 points, we're going to win.
Whenever he saw somebody out there that wasn't hustling, he wasn't out there long. He was on the bench, and you had somebody out there hustling, like Dave said before. You had a hustle to play for Bob Nichols.
if we didn't play football, which I didn't, then we had, I don't know if there was official or unofficial practices before the season started. We were just in the gym shooting, right? That was official?
Well, Van Heitzma's farm was right across the road from the school here now. And his dad had one of the biggest dairy farms around, and that was Dennis.
Well, we didn't have a basketball hoop, so we nailed a basket in the barn against the truss. And when we finally realized that it was easier to cut the bottom out of the basket, because we had a ladder right next to it, it was, yeah, far cry from coming and practicing here, let me tell you.
We had tryouts, and for the first quite a few years, we didn't really have an advisor. We just did what we did. We practiced every night after school in that area in front of the gym. And that's where all of us practiced while all the boys were in here practicing basketball, and it was real social too. We had a good time.
It was a great team.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were 8th graders at the time. Apparently, Doug and I were doing something we shouldn't be doing. Coach Nichols came around the corner with his little whistle, you know, his shorts, his clipboard. Okay, you two, come with me, you know. So we were like, oh crap, we're going to the office, you know. But we walked right past the office and we came here to the gym, and he said, okay, you two guys round up all the balls after these guys get done practicing, put them away. After practice, pick up the towels. So after that day, I thought that's it. But then the next day he said, keep coming back, coming back. So we wound up being the ball managers for the team, and it turned out to be a great experience.
I remember we had to have the duffel bag, and we'd take their watches and their billfolds during the games and watch that stuff for them. But mostly we were just along for the ride. It was fun. We looked up to them guys.
How I got the job, I transferred in 11th grade, so I only was with the class for the last 2 years, junior and senior. I had played a lot of fun basketball, never any organized basketball. So being interested in that, I met a few of the players in the first weeks that I was here, and seemed to get along pretty well with them. So I believe I volunteered to do something for the team and was picked to then keep the charts for the team.
I got the job from Mr. Collier. I think he wanted to make sure I stayed out of trouble, and he didn't want to take all the photography. And also, when I was shooting pictures for the basketball team and stuff while they were playing, I got into all the basketball games for free. So that was good. And it was fun taking pictures for the Echo and the annual, because it gave me an opportunity to meet everybody and talk with them and have fun.
The Sweet Georgia Brown was what the Globetrotters warmed up with, and I don't know who else beside myself, but I said, we got to do that, we got to do that. And then we finally ended up with these orange striped socks. Remember those? That was the same socks that the Harlan Globetrotters wore, so we said we were really cool. And they played that Sweet Georgia Brown while we did layups. And of course, we would try to do our layups, and we all had our own spot. And of course, we had the big man here. He would come through with the last one to slam dunk it. That scared the other team right away.
if there was a rivalry between schools, it was probably higher than any other school we had.
Somehow, Byron was intimidated by South for a long time, and I don't know why that is.
They were one class higher than we were, and so you felt like the underdog, and it was always a tough game.
South Christian jumped into an early 14-11 lead at the quarter and stayed in front 36-29 at the half.
I remember playing them with the intensity of the games.
A ton of the South Christian players were Byron Center Village kids. They were just all local kids. That made the competition.
Byron started to hit in the third quarter and narrowed the gap, 47-45, going into the final 8 minutes.
I just remember the noise level, the decibels. It would burst your eardrums almost. I mean, it was that intense. Every game was like that with them when we played them.
Byron was ahead 60-59 with less than 30 seconds to go when the Sailors scored the final basket.
I give the ball away, 5 seconds left, and they beat us 61-60.
South Christian beat Byron by a score of 61-60 in the last 10 seconds of the final period.
Brewsty Crocker, who stole the ball from Bugs Hibbets, was my first cousin also, and I had to spend the weekend with him up north at my cabin. And he calls me once a year from Tampa, Florida. He's a retired state policeman, and reminds me of the game that he won and that we lost.
Well, and I think the 63-64 South team, South Christian team, got to the quarterfinals, and I think they lost to Allegan, if I'm not mistaken.
But as time went on, I think everything evened out more. I don't know if it's why you guys were still in
there was a
school.
while there that they didn't play, but there was so much animosity.
No, but I mean
That was after us,
now I
yeah.
don't think it's like that.
No, I don't think so either.
The Byron Center Bulldogs sat atop the Ottawa-Kent Conference standings, along with 3 other winnings Friday after an opening 88-42 league victory over Kentwood at the Winners Gymnasium. Coach Bob Nichols fielded a team that displayed depth, excellent balance, and scoring potential for many quarters in beating Kentwood.
Well, I think that going into the season, there were high expectations that this club was really going to meld together and really produce wins.
The Middleville game and that Hudsonville game was the 2 games that actually put Nichols to a point where he was not happy. And when I say not happy, you got to explode that by about 100 times.
Trailing 19-10 at the quarter end, 35-31 at halftime, Middleville rallied in the third quarter to outscore Byron 24-12 and fashion a 55-47 lead by the end of the period.
The Middleville game, we let them down big time.
Big time.
Big time.
Big time.
That one sticks in my mind.
Middleville upended Byron Center high 74-68.
I'm a bit concerned with the number of fouls we are committing. Some of them are unnecessary. Our ball club seems to have no trouble scoring points, but our defense leaves a lot to be desired. The determination and hustle that the boys displayed impressed me very much. If they continue to show this type of desire, they will win a lot of games before this season draws to a close. The Hudsonville ball game was a tough one for our team to lose. Our boys played heads-up ball but seemed to run into some tough luck. Hudsonville has an excellent ball club that hustled right with us all the way. We feel that there were too many judgment plays that were called against us, but that is the way things happen.
So we're 1-3, but as is already mentioned, the 3 losses were against good clubs, Middleville, Hudsonville, and South Christian. So we are a good ball club, and we're facing good ball clubs, and we're in this hole, so to speak, with a 1-3 record. Coach was really working us hard because he had a lot of pent-up emotion. We were having longer practices and more intense practices. So he left it to Roger and me to chair this meeting in the locker room. And I think it came down to, how do we encourage each other? How do we pull out the potential that we have? What are the things we need to do, like hustle, defense, believing in ourselves, believing in teamwork, and these sorts of things? I think that team meeting and the practices and the interacting with Coach at that time turned this team around, literally turned this team around, so that we went on a win streak that only lost to South Christian one more time. So that tells me that that team meeting and the chemistry that was produced from it and the result speaks for itself.
I remember coming down that stairs that's just beyond that wall and getting just about past that locker room, coach's locker room, where Nick would always have a cigarette, only he'd keep the door half open, and the door was open. And he was looking just like this, and I tried to get by. Shoemaker, get in here. He said, what in the HE, and he did use the HE double hockey sticks, is going on out there? You're partially responsible for these losses. You can't let this team down. I won't let this team down. Where's Dave? Where's Dave? Get Dave in here. The meeting was actually with Dave and Nick and myself. He, in no uncertain terms, said, when you play for me, you will hustle or you will set the bench. If you score 50 points, you should win because your defense will carry you. And right now, we're not hustling enough. Look at these scores of the other team. And he said, go out and talk to the team. And we basically said to the team, you know, we got to get it together. I remember Phil coming up after that. What's going on? I said, well, he figures that we got more talent here and we want to give the ball to each other and don't want to take the ball to the hole. And I says, his exact words were, take the damn ball to the hole and put it in. You got more talent out here than I've ever had. Can't you work together and do that? And of course, he was right. He was right. Once again, he was right. He said, we're going to learn that today. Okay, Coach. He says, go up and shoot for a while. I'll be up in a little bit. But about a half hour went by, and I remember Arden coming up to me, what's going on? Because we were just around the gym playing, and I said, I don't know, but the coach ain't happy. He came out of that door, and he marched out to the middle here with that clipboard. He looked up at it, and it went flying underneath the bleachers that used to be over there. And he said, everybody line up on that line. You're going to run 20 of them, and you're going to run forward, back, and I'll blow the whistle, and then you go backwards here. And we did that, and then we were exhausted. He said, now you know how to run, and you will do that when you play defense for me, for the school, for the people that are patriotic enough to come and watch you. You owe that to them. I don't like to lose. And that was the basis of it, and after that we did our usual practice.
I like the way I presented it better, but
The Wyoming ball game was a badly needed victory for Byron. It was not the best played ball game of the year. It worries me that our club cannot hold the lead that it builds up. Twice during the first half, we saw 10-point leads vanish. It is interesting to note that this happened when we do not run our offense. For Byron, the sparkling turned out to be Denny Van Heitzma, who played brilliantly. This kind of hustle we can use a lot more of. One can't say enough about Roger Shoemaker. Raj is rapidly establishing himself as the finest player in our conference. When Raj committed his fourth foul early in the last quarter, Phil Wiltzer took up where Raj left off. This is the kind of effort we need from Phil all the time. In many respects, Phil is the real key to our success if we are going to be successful. Phil made 7 of his 14 points in that last quarter. Shoemaker led all scorers with 26 points. Wiltzer 14, Swinson 10, and Brunix 9. I was pleased by the remarks that Mr. Schuling, the Wyoming coach, made on radio Saturday morning. He has a high regard for our team as a whole and said that Roger Shoemaker was the finest player he had seen on the court this year. This was probably our best ball game to date. Our hustle and spirit were never better. After the opening 5 minutes, it was Byron all the way. I believe it was a tremendous team effort, and for that matter, a school effort. Student ticket sales were excellent. It was a pleasure to coach our team last Friday, and I sincerely hope we have found that winning combination of hustle and ability. Rogers is next, and what a ball game that should turn out to be.
Byron Center moved into first place tie with Hudsonville and Rogers in the Ottawa-Kent Conference and poised itself for the second half title chase Friday night with a rousing 92-71 cage victory over previously unbeaten Rogers at the Byron Gym.
Another thing that Nick came and told me, he said, I appreciate you being a high point man again. He says, but if you scored 26, he said, do you realize Phil's got the ability to score 46? I said, yeah. He says, pull him out of his shell.
I like to kind of take responsibility for the beginning of the year, because at the beginning of the year, I didn't want to play basketball. I told my dad, I'm done, I'm not going to play basketball this year. So I missed the first 3 or 4 practices, and all of a sudden he grabbed me by the shirt collar and says, you're going to play basketball. Now, up until Christmas time, I really didn't feel like playing basketball.
The Hudsonville game, I think I scored 26 points, and we lost. And I went to Phil. He says, congratulations on being a high point. But I said, you realize that if I can score 26, you can score more. No, I'm not interested. I says, if you're playing with me, why are you making me high point man when you should be all the time? We were at Comstock Park and they had a jumping spot where you could jump up and see how high you could jump. And I don't know what I jumped, 10 foot, 6, something like that, just enough so I could barely get the ball over the rim. And I said, Phil, why don't you try jumping here? We know you can jump higher. And he jumped up 12'2". And everybody was amazed. And I remember Style watching us do that. And he says, I don't believe this. He says, you can dunk a basketball. I said, Phil, you got more talent than I have. I wished I had your talent. I said, for crying out loud, you're wasting it. And I says, I'm tired of you wasting it. And then we had Christmas vacation.
Marv Andringa had a car, and he came to Phil Wiltzer and myself, Dave Brunix, and he said, would you guys want to go on a trip to Florida over Christmas vacation? We had just a great time on that trip. We played football on the beaches of Florida, and we came back really fired up and rested.
But when he came back, he was like a different person. He was like, yeah, let's go play basketball.
Yeah, he really came to believe in himself and his talents.
From then on, basketball became fun. It became fun playing with these guys.
Phil Wiltzer, sure shot Byron Center ace, long overshadowed by the presence of 2 all-conference teammates, one of the conference scoring leaders, stepped into the spotlight Friday night and paced a solid Bulldog attack that overpowered Rogers. Wiltzer took charge at the outset of the third quarter, dumped in the first 9 points for Byron, and paced a 29-point period for the winners.
Credit to Phil, he came out of his shell, and we found out, hey, here's a 6'2" guy that plays like a 7'2" guy who can shoot 3 points, only we didn't have a 3-point line. And he did it in 3 quarters because he was benched the last quarter because Nick didn't want to run up the score on Harry Hudson, who coached for Rogers, because they only lived about 1.5 miles away.
The final quarter, they took it easy and only scored 10 points for a 92-71 win over the Birds.
Thus Byron, the lone Class C school in the Ottawa-Kent Conference, which is made up of Class B members, had built a momentous 82-45 advantage by the end of the third quarter and coasted to victory.
This was our finest performance of the year, and it came when it was needed. Everyone played outstanding ball. The desire and hustle that our boys are displaying is a tribute to the type of boys they are. It is in my opinion that as long as they continue to play inspired ball and have the proper mental attitude about their opponents, they will continue to win. Phil was great against Rogers, and his performance overshadowed the fine performance turned in by the rest of the club. Shoemaker, Brunix, Swinson, Hibbets, and Van Heitzma played a tremendous ball game. Congratulations, fellas, on the finest performance ever turned in by a Byron Center basketball team.
I think both the Rogers game and the previous league game really reflected us getting our fast break honed. Coach had an insistence that when the opposition scored a basket, who's ever closest to that ball going through the net, you take it out. You don't let the defense get set by your opponent. And so we had a rhythm that was going, I believe, and the big guys sometimes would take the ball out, or a guard, whoever was closest, and up the floor we would go. And the fastest way you can go up the floor is not by dribbling, it's by passing. And we filled the lanes, and I think if you analyze the shot charts by Phil France, you will probably find most of the dog shots in that particular win, because that fast break was really, really humming.
Last Friday night, Byron had an overwhelming victory over Kelloggsville by a score of 65-37.
Byron Center, co-leader in the Ottawa-Kent Conference, journeyed to Caledonia Tuesday night to smash the Scotties of the Expressway League, 92-51.
Byron set back Forest Hill's chance of winning the championship by handing them their second straight defeat by a score of 56-49. Byron defeated the Kentwood Falcons Friday night by a score of 69-37.
The basketball race in the Ottawa-Kent Conference reaches a possible breaking point Friday night with a crucial contest on tap at Byron Center. Hudsonville, defending co-champion and preseason title favorite, travels to Byron Center to take on the Bulldogs.
I remember it was just packed. I mean, they had folding chairs around, and it was just packed. I remember that, but it was an exciting game.
Hudsonville edged Byron 80-77 in an early meeting this year, and the Bulldogs are anxious to avenge the defeat.
Oh, this place was tense that night. I can remember that. It was wild.
In the first quarter, at one time, Hudsonville had a 2-point lead. From the first quarter to the final buzzer, the determined and fighting Bulldogs led. At halftime, the score was 39-31. As the fourth quarter started, the Bulldogs had a 9-point advantage.
Well, the Hudsonville guy fouled me, and I'm so mild I don't get upset. When I hit the floor, I ended up almost against the wall. I got up and I was gonna go after him, but somebody out of the gym, out of the bleachers, jumped onto the floor and hit that guy.
And that Coach Nichols commissioned Hank Wiltzer, Phil's dad, to grab Bugs Hibbets, bring him down to the shop, and cool him off.
Next thing I know, I was in the shop room, the wood shop room, and this big hands held me and kept me right there, and I looked up and says, "Mr. Wiltshire, what are you doing?" He says, "I was told to keep you right here away from the crowd because it's getting wild in there." He wouldn't let me go back in, so. And he had hands like huge. When he got a hold of you, you weren't going anywhere.
These two incidences happened in the closing seconds of the game. So that we were thankful for, but there was just so much tension in this gymnasium, and we were glad we were on our home court to ultimately avenge that loss. And I believe that was another pivotal game, not only to win the OK League crown, but to catapult us into the tournament mindset that we needed to have.
It pulled us together even more, because you don't take out one of our players, because we played as a team. You take out one, you take out all of us, and it pulled us together even more.
Bulldogs knock out Hudsonville. The Bulldogs in a revenge game swept over the Eagles by a score of 73-66 in a capacity-filled gym.
The Hudsonville ball game was played on a night I shall never forget. Our team fully deserved to win the game and did an outstanding job. Certainly it was a solid team performance, and that is what makes our team a winner. The tremendous crowd from Byron was a great tribute and honor to a great group of kids who fully deserved their support. It was also an honor for this game to be selected as the game of the week. As it turned out, we were the team of the week and we won the game of the week. Dave Brunix, Phil Wiltzer, and Bugs Hibbett stood out, and in my mind, all three were players of the game. Rod Shoemaker also played a fine game, scoring 8 points and grabbing 10 rebounds. Dave Swinson kept us going in the first quarter with his fine play. Not enough can be said for Marv Andriga, who got 2 key baskets for us during the second half. Arden Edema also filled in adequately. Certainly the key to our success has been the ability of different players to come through for us. It seems when someone isn't hitting, someone else hits, and this is the mark of a good team. My congratulations to the entire team. It is a privilege to coach them, and I sincerely hope that they keep up their determination and desire to be a winning team.
Byron Center has been the most exciting team in the OK, demonstrating high-scoring attack to remain tied with Rogers for the league lead. Byron Center visits Wyoming Park and danger lurks for the 2 league leaders. Ottawa-Kent Conference co-leaders Byron Center and Rogers High try to maintain their league-leading pace Friday against a pair of also-rans. Rogers and Byron each own an 8-1 record. They play each other in the season's finale in 2 weeks. Wyoming appears in top form after weeks of being hampered with injuries.
The Bulldogs led through the entire game. The quarterly scores were 13-11, 34-25, 45-35, while in the final quarter, Wyoming narrowed the lead to 4 points, but couldn't overcome the Bulldogs.
Byron Center Friday night assumed the favorites' role in the Ottawa-Kent Conference basketball title chase after a 59-51 victory over rugged Wyoming. Ottawa-Kent's 8-team basketball league has been trying to determine a champion for 10 weeks, and Friday night 3 schools move into action, still holding various hopes for that title. Little Byron Center, the only Class C school in an otherwise Class B conference, is the most impressive claimant to the title, while Rogers still can tie for the top spot on its own merits. Hudsonville, meanwhile, waits in the wings with just 2 games remaining. Byron Center could gain a share of the OK crown this week with a victory and possibly pick up all the marbles if Rogers loses. Byron is now 9-1 and travels to Lee Friday to take on a rebel club that has proven a troublesome foe for most of the league. The Bulldogs had to contend with a fired-up Lee club that battled the champs to a 10-10 first quarter tie. Byron managed a 30-25 halftime lead, then stretched the margin to 48-38 going into the final 8 minutes of play. Byron's Bulldogs earned the title at Lee by fashioning a 71-58 victory over the Rebels.
Champions of 1964. Yup, good old Byron's basketball team made it to the top, right where it belongs. With a scoring team, a top-rate coach, and a cheering student body, we are now OK Conference basketball champs of 1964. Morning classes were shortened Monday for the presentation of the newly won trophy. Mr. Luckton gave a short speech and presented the trophy to the captains of the basketball team, Raj and Dave. The captains unveiled it and gave it to their proud coach, Mr. Nichols. He then presented the trophy to Mr. Weeks. Finally, the 2-foot trophy was placed in the trophy case at the north end of the hall. There, it now rests with its royal cape around it, being admired by everyone. So when some nut asks, "What's so great about Byron Center High?" proudly say, "What's the matter with you, bub? Don't you ever read the sports section of the newspaper?" Byron played its last league game of the season last Friday night and defeated Rogers by a score of 61-52. The Bulldogs got off to an early start and had an 8-point lead at the end of the first quarter. Byron led at the half by a score of 31-23, and the Bulldogs gave Rogers the lead through the entire game. Rogers' team in school was up for the game and out to defeat the champs, but they didn't have the ability to overtake the hustling Bulldogs.
As it's been referenced before, the balanced scoring, balanced rebounding, and I think where one person might be off a little bit on a game, somebody else steps up. And that really was the bottom line of our team as we completed the regular season, I believe.
That's my whole feel about the whole season. There was no one guy is the main guy. If one guy was down, another guy was up. You know, if I had 6, maybe I'd get 15. Or everybody had their ups and down nights, and nobody worried about anybody.
When we went in the locker room after the game, and usually won, it wasn't who was high point. It was how much did we win by, and how we doing, and who we gonna look for next time.
Well, we knew that Muskegon Christian was rated somewhere between 5 and 10 in the state. And if you don't get by your first district game, you're done.
I went into the, got a haircut. I think the day before that game was West Michigan Christian. And the consensus around the barbershop was that we had a good year, but it was going to end.
It was going to end.
Because we couldn't beat Muskegon Christian.
We couldn't beat Muskegon Christian.
No, we couldn't do that.
We had to know their weakness, and so Bill Erridge was sent over to scout him.
They had a player called Dustemar, and he was our big concern. Coach Nichols was concerned about him.
And he came back and he said, "You just got to do one thing, you shut down Dustemar."
So Coach Nichols came to me personally and said, "Brunix, you run a pretty good offense, but your defense stinks. So you need to step up on your defense, and I'm going to put you on Dean Deistermars, who is an all-stater from Muskegon Christian. And he says, I want you to follow him wherever he goes. Even if he goes back to his own team huddle during a timeout, I want you to follow him."
So when we had practice, Bill Erridge was Dustemars. Everywhere Erridge went, Brunix went. And finally I said to the coach Nichols, are you going to run this during the game? He says, I'm going to run this during the game. He says, if he's wearing a jock strap, I want Dave inside of it. I don't care if he stakes in the middle and goes down to the bathroom. I want Dave to follow him. When he turns around him, I want to see Dave's face. He says, I don't want him to think about scoring. I want him to think about our team, Dave and Denny. So frustrated, and it worked.
The box and one.
Box and one, what do we call it? The box and one. Wherever this guy went, Dave was there, and the rest of us took care of just like a box.
And we had him pretty well figured out. I remember going to the districts over at Godwin Heights. He couldn't do anything. And I was yelling, and I wasn't very calm. I was embarrassed, and I still am, the way I acted, but we got him. That's what I remember.
And I think we were able to shut him down. He got into foul trouble, and I think he scored 6 points. So that was one of the keys, playing defense against a really good ball club. And I think you might have got in, Denny, Van Heidsma, to harass this guy, as you were good at, and just frustrate him totally, and it shut down his offense.
Byron Center won its first game of the Class C district by defeating first-ranked Muskegon Christian 61-52. The Bulldogs led all the way through the game by a few points, but it wasn't until the last quarter when Byron broke loose and scored 23 points, 18 within a 2-minute period.
From that point on, as a person or a player, I didn't worry about getting beat. I figured, we'll figure out a way, we'll win any of them. That was big. That was big because you
didn't have to bring up hustle anymore. It was there 200%.
The team and Mr. Nichols are to be congratulated for their fine victories in order to win the Class C district championship.
Favorite Byron Center and a Dark Horse Comstock Park crew will battle it out Saturday night at Godwin's Fieldhouse for the District C Class basketball title.
I think winning a game against a good team to start out in the tournaments gave us terrific motivation, confidence. Hey, we can play with anybody. And I think that really was the impetus to continue into the tournament.
Strong Byron Center High's basketball team rolled to the Class C district tournament title by downing Comstock Park 63-43 Saturday night at Godwin Fieldhouse.
Our good old basketball team racked up another trophy for our trophy case Saturday night with a win over Comstock Park. At the assembly Monday morning, Mr. Lugden presented our team and their prize to the student body. Mr. Nichols then gave a few encouraging words about our next big game with Edmore, Thursday night at Mount Pleasant. All over school, you can hear remarks similar to, "I can't wait until Thursday." See you at the game.
The Bulldogs demonstrated to a crowd of nearly 3,700 just why they were the league champions in the tough Ottawa-Kent Conference, as they easily handled Edmore, an independent boasting of 16-3 record going into the contest.
I don't believe any of us, maybe some did, but I don't remember playing in a field house like that before. And the vast arena, the sight lines and everything like that, man, your shooting had to be adjusting to all of these different visions, you might say. So that was kind of a big thing.
raised floor. First time we played on a raised floor.
And that floor had a lot of dead spots in it too.
Byron grabbed a 6-0 lead when Edmore could not get on the scoreboard for nearly 3 minutes. After building a 6-8 margin in the first 8 minutes, the Bulldogs popped the game open in the second period.
And that was the game that Bob Freiberg and his brother Dick were walking the catwalks above and walkie-talkieing to Coach Nichols as to how to change offense, defense, whatever. And that was a comment that was put in the press, and we thought it was all quite remarkable.
Byron continued to set the pace and led 45-31 going into the final session.
Edmore's going to win. They got this guy, he's 6'7". He's at Jim Vancouvering. Well, when the ball went up in the air and Phil was about 1.5 feet above him, and no exaggeration, he looked around like, boy, I want to get out of here right now. And he was shell-shocked and scored, I don't know, 6 points, 5 points. He was done.
Phil Wiltzer, the 6'4" Byron dependable, consistently outplayed the Panthers' 6'8" sophomore, Jim Vancouvering.
He come up to me after that game and says, "Where did you learn to jump?" In my dad's barn.
Byron offset an Edmore height advantage with smooth floor play, excellent board work, and a balanced scoring attack.
The Bulldogs trampled over the Edmore Panthers at Central Michigan University Thursday night by a score of 71-47.
Byron will square off in a 3:45 p.m. contest against Merrill for a berth in the state quarterfinals next week. Byron led 15-11 at the first quarter mark. After a late Merrill surge that netted 6 straight points to close the second quarter, the Bulldogs took a 27-24 lead into the locker room.
Merrill game, Marvin Henry come out big time because they went to a zone in the second half and he just backed out, and I think he hit 3 or 4 right in a row, boom, 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 and then it pulled them out of the zone. And they couldn't compete with us man-to-man.
No.
So he did a really good job there.
He pulled them out, and when he did that, they had to go man-to-man. When they went man-to-man, it was over because we scored inside. We took the ball inside and it was done.
It was a balanced scoring effort that carried Byron to victory, 4 Bulldogs scoring in double figures. The Bulldogs had no easy time of it. After 4 minutes of play, the scrappy Cagers of Coach Bob Nichols found themselves without a bucket and trailing 11-2. The Shamrocks of Portland were hot and led at the end of the quarter 20-12.
We were down 10-0 to start the game, 10 or 12-0.
We weren't gelling at all in the first half.
I think I had 3 fouls in the first 3 minutes.
I was really worried. I said, oh no, he's got 3 fouls in the first period.
Portland, a fine club that had out-hustled Byron in the early stages, continued to challenge the Bulldogs and moved into a 35-34 halftime lead.
On the way out at halftime, Nichols did one of these, "What's going on out there?" I says, "It's just not warm tonight." He says, "What do we got to do?" "Do it." He said, "Can you talk to him?" And I says, "Well, I see a weakness in the center area." And I don't know what I scored that night, but I said, "I see a weakness."
Had a bunch.
Yeah, I says, "There's a weakness in the center area." Well, take her to the hole. I'll never forget these words he would use. Take her to the hole. Put it in, and I think in the second half or third quarter, I don't know, I scored I don't know what it was, but it brought the rest of the people that were playing defense out enough so everybody started scoring.
After intermission, the winners ran 7 straight points and before the quarter ended, hit Portland with 8 more in a row. Phil Wiltzer arched in a 30-footer as the buzzer sounded to end the third period and give Byron a 56-44 margin.
We had to get it done there at the end to get that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the final quarter, Portland scored 10 points in less than 2 minutes to bring them within 3 points of the Bulldogs. The Fighting Bulldogs held their lead until the final buzzer and again proved to be a top-notch ball club.
I think one of the things that you'll notice in the schedule here, there was a 5-point victory against Merrill and a 5-point victory against St. Patrick. We were learning how to win the close games too. Even though the margin of victory was not great, we still did not collapse and kept the pressure on and pulled out those close games.
Little Byron now carries the Grand Rapids area colors into a semifinal contest Friday at 7 p.m. at the Lansing Civic Center against a strong Galeen. High school basketball shoves politics in the background in the Michigan Capitol for the next 2 days as the big and colorful State Cage tournament enters its final stages. Byron Center, winner of the Ottawa-Kent Class B Conference crown, faces a tall and high-scoring Galeen quintet. Galeen, unbeaten in 22 starts, is picked to battle Grosse Pointe St. Paul for Saturday's Seed Championship starting at 4:45 p.m.
Galeen had a 6'10" center. And so Bill Airage came into that practice Thursday night with either a badminton racket or a tennis racket. He'd hold that thing up and say, "Shoot over this."
Yeah, that fella went on to play for Purdue. I mean, he was a stud.
He was Dick Schrump was his name, and he was, all Big Ten teams were scouting him. I mean, he was the man. And I remember Nichols saying, "You stay between him and the basket. I don't care what happens to your body. Don't let him get to that rim."
Lansing Civic Center seats about 4,500. The lobby was jammed before the first game, with many fans unable to get in. Byron Center started the contest with a full court press, but discarded it when Galeen had little trouble in moving the ball. Byron trailed 16-12 with 30 seconds left in the first period. 2 free throws from Shoemaker and 1 from Bugs Hibbets slashed the margin 16-15 at the quarter stop. Action was hot and heavy in the second quarter. The lead shifted hands 5 times, and the score nodded twice.
The game was close. It was back and forth. It was, nobody could pull away. It's a good game.
Galeen took the play away from Byron in the third quarter. Schrump fired at the basket 10 times and made 6 two-pointers to give Galeen a 47-44 command going into the final 8 minutes.
Phil and I had played ball together for so many times that we knew what each other was going to do almost without talking or saying anything. And the ball came to Phil in the corner, and that means I'm going over and setting the screen. And I set a screen, and his 6'10", 6'11" guy, he went around me and pushed me around, and Phil is driving the ball against him, and he drives it to the key, and this guy is trying to guard Phil. Now, a 6'2", 6'3" guy being guarded by a 6'10" Goliath, and Phil comes down the center of the key and slam dunk over top of this guy.
And that was, to us, that was just fantastic that he could get that high up and do that, get the ball over the edge of the rim. That was a real point of excitement for the whole Byron Center crowd.
And the crowd went nuts, everybody went nuts, including the 6'10" guy. And that lit up the game, and I think that changed everything on that game. It lit the whole crowd on fire, and it lit the rest of the team on fire.
Their 6'10" center, he ended up with 24, 25 points, but Raj did a heck of a job on him. he fronted him, he played behind him, he just frustrated him a lot because this kid was used to scoring easily, and he couldn't do that. He had to work for everything he got. And that was his doing.
I did foul out, and there was about 3 minutes left, 4 minutes left. And Nick says, "What do I put in?" I said, "Get Edema. I played against him in practice. This guy's tough. He's got big elbows and he's physically strong." So I'll never forget, he grabbed Edema by the collar, pulled him over, and he says, "Talk to this guy." "What do you want me to do?" I says, "I don't care. You got 3 minutes and 5 fouls. Use them up. Don't let that guy get near the basket no matter what you do. You understand? You know what no matter what you do."
The score was tied at 53 all with 4 minutes and 38 seconds left. Byron substitute Marv Andringa made 2 free throws. At this point, Brunix connected on his 3 straight goals to move Byron out in front for good. Even before the final gun, Byron fans numbering nearly 1,000 started cheering their heroes and chanting "State Championship Saturday." Bedlam broke loose in the Byron Center cheering section and on the players' bench when the gun sounded, ending the hotly contested Class C basketball tournament semifinals game with Galeen Friday night at the Lansing Civic Center.
Hank, your dad, and Bud Freiling, and Jake Decline jumping up and down on the bleachers after the game was over. I just never forgot them guys. The crowd was crazy. That was.
They would pull each other off the court because they were trying to run out on the floor.
Those 4 people you mentioned should have been separated in the arena. They should not have been together.
They were every game, though, weren't they?
I guess so.
The scoreboard hanging over the auditorium stage read, Byron Center 67, Galeen 61. It was another one of the many major upsets recorded in this year's high school tournament. One of the happy Byron Center players tossed the game ball high in the air as the substitutes and fans stormed on the floor to congratulate the players. Coach Bob Nichols had mixed emotions. He was happy and proud of his team, but also was worried about the condition of Phil Wiltzer's 2 ankles.
Phil, very unfortunately, sprained both of his ankles and was able to hang in there and finish the game.
I come down from a rebound, I think, and stepped on somebody's foot and then twisted it that way.
When I looked at his ankles, I said, "What in the world?" And I grabbed his shoes to look to see if his shoes the next day were not going to fit on his feet. And back then we used the old Converse tennis shoes.
Yeah, low cuts.
Oh my gosh, and you couldn't, how are we going to get his feet in his shoes? How are we going to get his feet in his shoes? You got to worry about this guy playing a basketball game. He can't even walk.
No.
We went up to, I think it was Bill Erridge's room, and Raj and me and Bill Erridge and somebody else sat around and played cards. And I had my feet in a bucket, each one in a bucket of ice. We sat there for about 2 or 3 hours and played cards. And Michigan State trainer wrapped my ankles for that game. And it was really an experience to have him do it compared to Nichols. Nichols was a great coach, but he couldn't tape ankles.
He didn't know anything about wrapping ankles.
But he tapes them so tight to protect them that it takes the spring out of your legs. It's hard to jump.
Oh.
So you can't spring off your toes.
And it was a long night for everybody, and we were spent.
The team was pretty exhausted. I mean, everything was laid out that night on the floor. We were spent.
We were just trying to get everything together, and the biggest thing was physically getting together, because Dave Brunix had a knee that was twisted. I had one ankle that was bad, and Phil it was the #1 big hurting problem, trying to find a pair of shoes that he could wear, which was...
Marv had shin splints.
Marv had shin splints, and we were walking wounded. If we had our druthers, we would have said, let's put this off for a week and then we'll play this game, and we'll play it the way we usually play our games.
I don't think there was a whole lot of rest the night before the final game. I mean, from a mental standpoint, physical standpoint, Here we are, country bumpkins from Byron Center, staying at the Jack Tar Hotel downtown Lansing. I mean, that was quite a new experience to everybody. So I don't think there was a whole lot of rest for various reasons that evening. It's too bad we couldn't have had a few extra days between semifinal and final, but that's just the way the scheduling is.
When we went to the state finals game, this town was dead.
Saturday morning, several buses and a caravan of cars had carted off almost half of the town's population to see the grand finale of the state high school tournament.
I remember the whole town was finding ways to the game. I mean, you'd figure who's driving, so who can we ride with? And well, the buses got filled, and then you had to find another way. But it was like the town emptied out to get to that game. It was great.
There was, I know Mary Buckawing was in the pie house with some other girl, and they said there was nobody else in town.
One gasoline station in Byron Center knocked off 3 cents a gallon to all the cars driving to Lansing. It was a big day for a small town in the middle of celery land. Throughout the day, a mood of hushed hope and expectancy hung over the community, shuttling out almost all the world except for Jennison Field House in East Lansing.
I think the Jennison Field House held 12,000 fans, and I wonder how many thousand came from Byron Center for that game.
It was full, I know that. There was a lot there. Nick said, they put their underwear on the same way you do. We're playing on a court the same size that we have at Byron, and he was trying to relate this all to us, that it was all the same. Let's go after this just like it's another team and it's playing in another gymnasium, even though it wasn't.
Here we are at Jennison Fieldhouse on the campus of Michigan State University, East Lansing, for the Class C Finals game 1964 between Byron Center and Grosse Pointe St. Paul.
I think Grosse Pointe St. Paul had a little advantage because they had been the state champs the prior year, so they were going for number 2. So they had a little bit of experience with that.
The big thing was we were injured. They had a very talented team.
If I recall, they had twin brothers, Bingham twins, awesome players, especially number 20, I think, was their guard. It's almost like he was going full speed and all the rest of us were in slow motion. I mean, he was a very, very good player.
Yeah, and his brother was equally talented, and they played the guard positions, and expert dribblers, ball handlers, and then you have the 6'10" guy in the middle. So they had a pretty good threesome.
I remember being so concerned about Phil with his sprained ankle and all taped up, and I was so concerned. How could he do that?
Yeah, I remember too.
Here's the jump ball for the start of the game. That was Phil Wiltzer for Byron Center.
Phil Wiltzer, Byron's 6'3" forward, who sprained both his ankles in Friday's win over previously unbeaten Galeen, played the entire game, but limped badly. He was unable to play his usual strong rebounding game, and his scoring was throttled. This was felt in the Bulldog attack.
Grosse Pointe bringing the ball down. We have a full court press going on for Byron Center, but Grosse Pointe breaks that pretty easily, passing to the big guy, 42, Martin.
Handling the frontline attack was Bob Martin, 6'10" senior, the second such giant the Bulldogs faced in as many nights. Martin controlled the boards and ripped Byron's defense with 11 baskets, majority coming on tip-ins.
Oh, passed the big guy under the bucket.
when I went up to Central, about 3 months after I was there, I was sitting on a Saturday afternoon pretending I was studying. And I got a knock on my door, and one of them, the guy that walked in was one of the Bingham brothers. And he said, you know, we never planned on playing you that Saturday. He says, we scouted Gleen all year long. And he said, then we scouted you on Friday night, and then we had a team meeting, and the coach said, we cannot run with this team. They will blow us off the court. The only way we can beat them is to hold the ball. And there was no 30-second rule like there is now. So there was times that they would hold the ball for 2 minutes and nobody would score. And you can see what the score was at the end. It was very low. And he says, we knew if we could get ahead, we could control the ball out front. And that's the ball game they did with us. Because they did not want to run with us. And little did they know that we were so injured we couldn't run.
I know we were close at halftime. We were, I think, only down by 3.
Coach Nichols attempted everything in the books on defense to halt Grosse Pointe, but to no avail.
I was coming through the edge of the locker room for some reason, and in a kind of an isolated part of the locker room, Bob Nichols was there, and he was hunched over, lost deep in thought with his arms on his knees and a cigarette in his hand.
And he held his head like this. I've never seen him do that before.
This is a guy that's really lost in thought, that's trying to figure out what we can do better in the last half of the game. But it was really kind of a poignant scene, him sitting there all by himself.
He said, I couldn't ask you guys to do any more. And it touches me now. Because he said, I couldn't ask you guys to do any more.
Now we're back to the third quarter. Wiltzer jumping against Bob Martin, 6'10" center. Ooh, they went right down and scored a feed from Bingham to Martin.
Byron wasn't the same sharp club that rocked Gleen Friday.
Back and forth between Andring and Hibbets, over to Swinson on the side. He tries to pass over the top, and the pass is too long. Hard to double team them too, because they spread the floor pretty well.
Yeah, they did a great job, and when you give them layups like that, it's hard to beat.
Yep. That's the end of the game. 53 Grosse Pointe, 39 Byron Center. And there's the St. Paul team rejoicing. The Byron Center team looks a bit dejected, understandably so. There's Coach Nichols. The cheerleaders are gathering around some of the players. There's the Byron Center team receiving the runner-up trophy. There's Coach Nichols behind them, walking toward another man, receiving congratulations. They're going off to the locker room. remember a conversation with Coach Nichols following the tournament. He said, I really think we should have loaded everybody up and went back home, slept in our own homes, our own beds, fired the bus up, and brought us all back to Lansing the next day.
This year's basketball team went further in the tournaments than any other team in the school's history. The whole school and community is very proud of their team. Team, you did a fine job.
I particularly remember the bus ride home as pretty quiet. I think we were exhausted for one thing, and we felt that sense of defeat that we hadn't quite gotten over the mountain.
We got off the expressway in downtown Grand Rapids and come all the way out Division from downtown Grand Rapids.
I said to Nick, what's going on? He says, there's people going to meet us all the way. He says, see those lights in the sky? He says, they're coming from Byron Center, and that's where we're going. The people there who really appreciate you, and they're going to show it to you tonight. And he said it with a tear in his eye.
And I remember looking out the window and seeing all those people. I thought, oh my gosh. My first thought was, we didn't win. Why did they come? But they were there.
And all that ride, we saw these lights flashing and cops leading us. Here we are, and we got to Byron, and that parking lot was jammed, and people outside all over. They were just people all over, and screaming and yelling, and we're trying to get off the bus and get inside and without breaking the trophy. I remember I carried it off the bus and trying to hand it to Nichols.
I think it really hit me when we walked through the doors of the gym. There were just loads of people and a lot of affirmation.
We went through those doors, and it was like the biggest bunch of screaming noise of people, and those bleachers were full, and the people standing all over. And the cheerleaders were there, and they did us a great big cheer, and it was amazing. It was like, we don't deserve this.
It was like, wow, the community really is proud of us. We should be proud of ourselves for what we've accomplished.
The celebration was great when you had some of the older gentlemen that was part of the community. I remember Rick's dad getting up and giving a little speech about how big a deal it was for him to watch us go to the finals, and some of the other, I don't know, Wink Brower and some of the other guys that, yeah, wow, I was impressed, really, really, what the community said.
It showed that it wasn't there, they were not there just to win. They were supporting us all the way.
I think it was just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah,
you know,
we
everything
did.
was so exciting. You know, when we kept winning, and nobody expected that was going to happen, and it was just fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Leaves you with a lot of good high school memories.
It kind of pulled us together to almost seem like a high school family.
Really?
The whole school.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was just, who's next? And the next week would follow, and we'd all get together, and everybody would be, it was a go-to thing, and everybody was happy, smiling, and the team at that time got to a point where we were all working together, and it didn't make a difference who you were with or who you were working with, and it didn't make a difference who scored all the points. It was a team effort all the way.
But we were awful proud. I still remember being awful proud when we went back to school.
Yeah.
Coach Robert Nichols died on June 12, 1986, at the age of 56 from a heart attack.
He was a father, teacher, administrator, and our coach. But more than anything else, he was a leader in everything he did. He did things one way, do it once, do it right. You won't have to do it again.
There's nobody that made more of an impact on my life than Bob Nichols. We called him Nick. Probably the reason I went into teaching and into coaching was because of Nick.
On June 3rd in 2009, he received the Circle of Honor Award for his leadership for the Byron Center community. And this was presented to him by Ken Koster.
I know I did my student teaching under him, and I was amazed at just how much knowledge he had, and just the intensity that he always brought. When he was around, he just inspired people to do more than they thought they could do.
And he says, I'll always be dedicated to him. And I'm sorry to say, Ken also has passed away since that time.
So at this time, I'd like to have his wife, Joanne, and his oldest son, Gordy, come forward to receive the public award for the Circle of Honor of 2009. They're receiving a plaque, and also there's a brick that will be installed at Whistle Stop Park. It'll be there forever. And we miss him. Thank you.
We also recognize Coach Albert Stile, and some of you might be interested to hear that Albert Stile was Albert Stile IV. Our dear Al Stile passed away on December 4, 2018 at the age of 82. He coached football and basketball and golf here at Byron Center. He also coached cross country and basketball at Grand Rapids Catholic Central. And do you remember the most famous statement he would make in history class? Those who fail history are doomed to repeat it. We also recognize Coach Jerry Waddell, who died August 23, 2021, at the age of 86. He coached baseball, basketball, and football at Byron Center. He was the athletic director for 15 years, and the football field is named in his honor. I also mentioned Bob Freiberg earlier. He passed away on December 23, 2007, at the age of 75. He served the Kentwood School District for 36 years. He was a basketball coach there for 5 years and football for 22. We also want to recognize Coach Marianne Arridge, wife of Bill Arridge. She died on January 23, 2019, at the age of 78. She was the coach of the girls basketball team here at Byron Center. And Marianne was also an avid golfer that achieved the elusive hole-in-one. We also want to recognize junior player Eddie Hayes, or Eddie Hasse, as he said. Eddie died on December 6, 2013 at the age of 66. We recognize also sophomore player Doug DeBoer, who died on October 20, 1988 at the age of 40. We also recognize manager Michael McDuffie. He died November 9, 2015 at the age of 66. And lastly, we recognize senior cheerleader Sharon Vornkamp Brown. She died on October 23, 1995 at the age of 49. Both Sharon and her husband Jim Brown, Jim being a Byron Center grad in 1963, were physical education teachers in the Granville school system. Some 4 decades ago, Sharon Vornkamp Brown formed a competitive cheer program that has stood the test of time, and in talking with Jim Brown just lately, the current director has named now that competitive cheer in Sharon's honor. These are the ones who have gone before us, and we recognize their contributions, their friendships, and their love.
Watching the team from outside, we weren't players, but, I vaguely remember the bus rides and stuff and all the chatter going on, but everyone knows that if you have a state championship team, which is what we had, that you have to have the players, you have to have the coaching, you have to have the support from the school. A lot of things have to come together to make that happen. And being in the periphery of listening to the coach, who was very supportive. Sometimes he could be a little brutal, but these guys set a standard for working together. It sounds cliche, but it does take a team. And when someone wasn't playing well, someone else stepped up. And these guys showed that, and that's one of my biggest memories, is that I'm sure there was some friction once in a while, but they were supportive of each other, and it wasn't a lot of showboating. When we needed the points and when we needed the rebounds, someone stepped up. And it was kind of nice to be able to go to all the games expecting to win, and we did.
It was also in 1964, Byron Center wasn't known all around as kind of out in the woods yet. And with that team, a lot of people got to know where Byron Center was and who Byron Center was. I know I was downtown a couple times, had my school jacket on and had Byron Center on it. And people saying, "Oh, you're from Byron Center. You guys are really doing good. You're going to the state and stuff." So it was really a good time to be at Byron Center and finally getting Byron Center where people knew where it was. We were the school out in the pastures for a while, so this got us a name out there. So
I remember somebody, I don't know what gym we were at, it was I think a away game, but somebody hung their uniform. It was on a big metal hanger, and they hung it on the smoke, on the fire alarm, and and it was so heavy it pulled that down and the alarm went off. But I don't remember who did that. It seemed to me it was Art Niedema, but I don't remember.
We're going to get everybody before we're done.
And it was exciting to watch these guys play basketball because I come up with them the whole way, and I played with them a couple years, and I knew we had quite a team. So it was great being able to take the pictures in 1964 of that class because they did such a great job, and it was fun.
What one was it we were doing?
Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Bulldogs, Bulldogs. Rah, rah, rah.
Can't you get up and do the splits or something? You know?
No, yeah.